Marcus Holloway owned half of Silicon Valley, 300 million in net worth before he turned 40. Tech patents, venture capital, angel investments that turned startups into empires. Everything he touched multiplied. Forbes featured him twice. TechCrunch called him a visionary. His Palo Alto estate sat on 8 acres with infinity pools, a tennis court, a home gym that cost more than most houses. But money couldn't save what mattered most. His wife, Elena, died 3 hours after delivering their triplets. Postpartum hemorrhage. The doctors worked for 40 minutes trying to stop the bleeding. Marcus watched through the observation window, his hands pressed against the glass, his world ending in real time. When they finally stopped, when the head surgeon came out and shook his head, Marcus's knees buckled. He slid down that wall and stayed there until a nurse helped him up. Elena never held her daughters, never heard their first cries, never saw their faces. Sophia, Grace, and Hannah, 2 pounds each, premature, fighting for their lives in the NICU while their mother's body grew cold 3 floors down. Marcus held Elena's hand until they made him leave. Then he walked to the NICU and stood outside the glass, staring at 3 tiny bodies in plastic boxes, tubes and wires keeping them alive. The neonatologist approached him on the 3rd day. "Mr. Holloway, we need to discuss something." Marcus didn't turn around, just kept watching his daughters through the glass. The girls have significant optic nerve damage, both eyes, all 3 children. Based on the imaging and response tests, their visual development is severely compromised. "What does that mean?" The doctor hesitated. "It means they're blind." "Mr. Holloway, likely permanently." The words didn't land. Not then. Marcus was still trying to process that Elena was gone, that he'd become a widower and a father in the same night, that his entire life had been rewritten in 3 hours. Is there surgery? Treatment? We can monitor them as they grow. Sometimes there's minimal light perception that develops, but based on what we're seeing now, walking them through life, the prognosis is that they won't have functional vision. Marcus's hands pressed harder against the glass. His daughters, born into darkness, born without their mother, born into a world they'd never see. 6 months passed. The girls came home to a house Marcus had redesigned. Padded corners, textured floors to help with navigation, every surface measured and marked. He hired specialists from Boston, flew in doctors from Switzerland, purchased equipment that hospitals didn't even have yet. Nothing changed. Sophia, Grace, and Hannah sat in their specialized chairs, small bodies still, eyes open but unseeing. They didn't track movement, didn't reach for toys, didn't smile when voices came near. The specialists said this was common. Blindness from birth often delayed other developmental milestones. The girls were processing the world differently. Give them time. Marcus gave them time. 18 months. The girls barely moved. They startled at sudden sounds, cried when their routines changed, remained locked inside themselves, unable to navigate a world they couldn't see. And Marcus, alone in his 8-acre estate, started to accept what the doctors had said from the beginning. His daughters would never see his face, never watch a sunset, never read a book or see Elena's smile in their own reflections. He buried that hope right next to his wife. Then came the betrayals. Marcus hired 11 caregivers in 22 months. The first lasted 3 weeks before she quit. Said caring for blind triplets was too depressing, she couldn't handle it. The second seemed capable until Marcus reviewed the security footage and saw her on her phone for 6 hours straight while the girls sat unattended, crying for someone to respond. He fired her immediately. The third caregiver was perfect. Credentials from Stanford, 15 years of experience with special needs children, references that praised her endlessly. Marcus trusted her. For 8 weeks, she was everything the girls needed. Then she sold photos of his home, his daughters, their medical equipment to a celebrity gossip site for $8,000. The headline read, "Tech Billionaire's Tragic Triplets, Inside the Mansion of Blind Babies." Marcus found out when his lawyer called. The photos were already online. His daughters' faces, their disability, his private grief, all packaged for clicks and ad revenue. Something broke inside him that day. The fourth caregiver accessed his financial accounts. The fifth disappeared with prescription medications. The sixth leaked details about the girls' routines to a journalist writing an unauthorized biography. Each betrayal carved deeper. Each theft of trust made Marcus harder, colder, more convinced that people couldn't be trusted, that everyone had an angle. That vulnerability was just an opportunity for exploitation. He installed cameras in every room, every hallway, motion sensors, 24-hour monitoring with live feeds to his phone. He started spending his nights reviewing footage, rewinding, zooming in, looking for the slip, the moment when the mask came off and the real intention showed through. The 7th caregiver tried to sell his daughter's medical records. The 8th posted about them on social media. The 9th, 10th, and 11th all quit within weeks, unable to handle Marcus's constant surveillance, his cold questioning, his complete inability to trust. His staff walked on eggshells. His lawyer handled all the severance agreements and NDAs. His security team did background checks that went back 3 generations. Marcus stopped seeing people as people. He saw risks, probabilities, failure points waiting to happen. Control became his only protection. If he controlled everything, watched everything, anticipated everything, maybe he could prevent the next betrayal. Maybe he could keep his daughters safe from a world that had already taken so much from them. Rebecca Torres walked through his front door on a Tuesday morning, 31 years old, quiet, composed. She wore simple clothes, carried a small bag, and met Marcus's eyes directly when he interviewed her. No nervousness, no excessive friendliness, just calm presence. Marcus sat across from her in his office, her file open on his desk. He hadn't looked up yet. "Your references are minimal. I've spent the last 5 years caring for my grandmother," Rebecca said. "She had dementia and went blind from diabetes complications. I left the formal healthcare field to be with her full-time. That's a gap in your resume." "It's a gap I'd make again, sir." Marcus finally looked up. Her eyes were steady, clear. Something about her expression made him uncomfortable, not because she seemed dishonest, but because she seemed unimpressed by him. "The pay is $15 an hour," he said. "The hours are long. The girls require constant attention. I understand. There are rules." Marcus's voice hardened. "No improvising, no bonding, no hope speeches. Follow the protocol exactly. The doctors have been clear about their prognosis. I don't want anyone filling their heads with false expectations." Rebecca nodded slowly. "What exactly is the prognosis?" "They're blind. They'll always be blind. Everything we do is management, not treatment." "And what does management look like?" "Keep them safe. Keep them on schedule. Follow the sensory integration plan the occupational therapist created. Nothing more." Rebecca's jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't argue. "I understand, Mr. Holloway. There are cameras in every room," Marcus continued. "I review all footage. Any deviation from protocol will result in immediate termination. Any breach of privacy, any contact with media, any attempt to exploit my daughters in any way will result in legal action. Do you understand?" "I understand." "You'll sign an NDA before you start. You won't discuss my family with anyone. You won't post on social media. You won't take photos. You won't have visitors to the house." Rebecca met his eyes. "Your daughters aren't props, Mr. Holloway. They're children. I have no interest in exploiting them." Marcus studied her face, looking for the crack, the insincerity, the hidden agenda. He found nothing. "You start tomorrow, 7 a.m. sharp." Rebecca stood. "Thank you for the opportunity, sir." That night, Marcus watched her on the cameras for the first time. She arrived at 6:55, 5 minutes early. She walked through the halls slowly, studying everything. The textured floor paths, the padded corners, the way the house had been built to accommodate blindness. She didn't touch anything, didn't snoop, just observed. At 7, she entered the nursery where the girls sat in their specialized chairs. "Good morning," she said softly. "My name is Rebecca. I'm going to be spending time with you." The girls didn't respond. They never did. Rebecca knelt in front of Sophia. She didn't touch her immediately, just positioned herself close enough that Sophia might sense her presence, might feel the warmth of another person nearby. "You don't know me yet," Rebecca whispered, "but I promise I'm going to try very hard to know you." Marcus watched from his office, one hand hovering over his phone, ready to call down and remind her. No bonding. But he didn't, because Rebecca wasn't being overly affectionate. She was just being present. She moved to Grace next. Same approach, quiet greeting, respectful distance. Then, Hannah. For the first 20 minutes, Rebecca just sat with them, not doing therapy exercises, not following the protocol Marcus had outlined, just sitting. Marcus's jaw tightened. This wasn't the schedule, but before he could intervene, Rebecca stood and began the morning routine exactly as specified. Diaper changes, feeding, sensory time with textured objects. Everything correct, everything professional. That night, reviewing the full day's footage, Marcus found himself watching her more carefully. Rebecca followed the protocol, but there was something in the way she moved, the way she touched the girls with such gentleness, such care, that made his chest tighten. No one had touched his daughters like that since Elena died. By the end of the first week, Rebecca started making small changes. Nothing dramatic. Nothing Marcus could immediately classify as rule-breaking, just adjustments. She brought a small Bluetooth speaker into the nursery. During the afternoon sensory time, she played music, not children's songs, classical music, gentle piano, strings, melodies that filled the room with sound. Marcus watched from his office, finger hovering over the intercom button. This wasn't in the protocol. The girls had auditory therapy on Thursdays with a licensed specialist. Random music wasn't part of the plan. But Sophia turned her head toward the sound. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. Sophia's small head, which usually stayed fixed in one position, rotated slowly, tracking the music. Her fingers, which usually remained still in her lap, began tapping against the armrest of her chair. Rebecca noticed too. She adjusted the volume slightly higher, then moved to kneel beside Sophia's chair. "You hear it, don't you?" she whispered. "You like that?" Sophia's mouth opened slightly. Not quite a smile, but something close. A response. Marcus's throat tightened. The next day, Rebecca did it again. Same music, same routine. But this time, she added something. She began moving the girls' hands in rhythm with the melody, gentle swaying motions, helping them feel the music through movement. Grace's fingers curled around Rebecca's hand. Marcus stared at the screen. His daughter was holding someone's hand, voluntarily, intentionally. By the second week, Rebecca had incorporated the music into every part of the routine. Morning sensory time, feeding sessions, quiet periods before naps. Always gentle, always consistent, and the girls were responding. Hannah, the smallest, started making sounds during the music. Not words, just vocalizations. Little hums that matched the pitch of the piano. Marcus told himself it meant nothing. Coincidence. Random neurological responses. The girls had made sounds before. But late at night, alone in his office, watching Rebecca work, he couldn't deny what he was seeing. His daughters were changing. Small changes, subtle shifts, but undeniable. And Rebecca, this woman he'd hired with strict instructions not to improvise, was breaking every rule he'd set. He should fire her. But every time he opened his phone to draft the termination message, he stopped. Because his daughters were more alive than they'd been in 18 months. And Marcus couldn't bring himself to destroy that, even if it terrified him. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Week 3 arrived, and Marcus couldn't stop watching. Every night, after the house went dark, he sat in his office with the glow of monitors painting shadows across his face. He told himself it was due diligence, protecting his daughters from another betrayal, but that wasn't true anymore. He was watching because something was happening. Something he didn't understand. Rebecca had abandoned the protocol entirely. The occupational therapist's sensory integration plan sat unused on the shelf. Instead, Rebecca created her own routine, one built on music, repetition, and something else Marcus couldn't name. Faith, maybe, or stubborn belief. One Tuesday afternoon, Marcus pulled up the live feed and nearly dropped his coffee. Rebecca was on the floor with all 3 girls. She'd positioned them in a circle, their specialized chairs pushed against the wall, their small bodies supported by cushions. She had their hands in hers, moving them through patterns. Touch, release, over and over. The same motion, the same rhythm, synchronized with soft piano music playing from her speaker. Marcus leaned toward the screen. What was she doing? Rebecca's voice came through the audio, gentle but firm. "That's it, Sophia. Feel the pattern. Your brain is learning. Your hands are teaching it." She moved to Grace next. Same pattern, same patient repetition. Then Hannah. Marcus watched for 20 minutes. Rebecca never rushed, never showed frustration when the girls' hands went limp or when they pulled away. She just started again, and again, and again. His phone buzzed. The developmental pediatrician, Dr. Chen, calling for the monthly check-in. "Mr. Holloway, I reviewed the progress notes from last week's home visit. I need to ask you something. Marcus's chest tightened. What? Has there been a change in caregivers? Or in the therapy approach? Why? Because the girls are showing remarkable improvement in tactile response and auditory tracking. Sophia held my hand during the examination. Actually held it, not just passive acceptance. That's significant progress. Marcus's hand gripped the phone tighter. What does that mean? It means their brains are forming new pathways. They're learning to navigate their environment in ways we didn't see 6 months ago. Whatever's happening at home, keep doing it. Marcus hung up and stared at the monitors. Rebecca was now helping Sophia stand, supporting her weight, moving her legs in walking patterns even though Sophia had never walked, even though the physical therapist said blind children often took longer to develop mobility. But Sophia's legs were moving. Small steps, trembling and uncertain, but intentional. Marcus opened a new browser window. His hands shook as he typed, "Neuroplasticity in blind children, early intervention." Articles flooded the screen. Medical journals. Research from universities he recognized. He clicked the first one. Early tactile and auditory intervention in congenitally blind children has shown significant results in neural pathway development and spatial awareness. Another article. Repetitive motor pattern training combined with music therapy can accelerate developmental milestones in blind infants and toddlers. And another. The infant brain demonstrates extraordinary plasticity. With consistent, targeted intervention, blind children can achieve mobility and independence far exceeding initial expectations. Marcus read until 3 in the morning, until his eyes burned, until he'd absorbed every study, every case report, every documented success story. Everything Rebecca was doing, the music, the repetitive movements, the tactile patterns, it was all there in black and white. Proven methodologies, established interventions, techniques that worked, and he'd almost fired her for it. Twice, his stomach turned. For 18 months, he'd accepted the doctor's initial prognosis like it was carved in stone. He'd spent millions on equipment, but never once questioned whether there was another way. He'd hired specialists who maintained the status quo, but never challenged it. Rebecca had been here 3 weeks, making $15 an hour, and she'd accomplished what his millions hadn't touched, because she believed. And Marcus had stopped believing the day Elena died. Thursday afternoon, Marcus sat in a video conference with investors in Tokyo. $100 million deal, partnership negotiations that could expand his portfolio into Southeast Asian markets. The CEO on the screen was mid-sentence when Marcus's phone buzzed. Motion alert. Living room. Marcus frowned. The girls were supposed to be in the sensory room at this hour, not the living room. He glanced at his watch. 2:45. Still 30 minutes until their scheduled room change. He pulled out his phone under the table and opened the security app. The image took 3 full seconds to register. 3 specialized chairs sat empty against the wall. Marcus's heart stopped. Where were his daughters? His first thought was panic. Something happened. Emergency. Rebecca rushed them somewhere. Then he saw them. Center of the living room. Hardwood floor gleaming in the afternoon light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. Sophia, Grace, and Hannah. Standing. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. His 3 blind daughters, the girls doctors said would struggle with mobility for years, were standing upright on their own 2 feet. Wobbly, trembling, but standing without support. Rebecca knelt about 6 feet in front of them, her arms stretched wide. "Come on, my sweet girls," she whispered, tears already streaming down her face. "Come to me. Follow my voice. You can do it." The Tokyo CEO's voice became white noise. Marcus couldn't hear anything except the blood pounding in his ears. Sophia moved first. Her small foot lifted from the ground, hovered in the air for 1 eternal second, then came down 12 inches forward. A step. An actual step. Marcus's hand flew to his mouth. Grace went next. Her legs shook violently, her arms stretched out for balance, but she moved. 1 foot, then the other. 2 steps toward Rebecca's voice. A sound escaped Marcus's throat, something between a gasp and a sob. Hannah, the smallest, stood perfectly still, head tilted toward Rebecca's voice, processing, calculating, gathering courage. "You can do it, Hannah girl," Rebecca called softly. "I'm right here. Listen to my voice. Walk to me, baby." Hannah's foot lifted. It came down, 18 inches forward. Another step. Another. Marcus watched his youngest daughter actually walk toward Rebecca's outstretched arms. His phone slipped from his fingers. It clattered onto the conference table, but he didn't hear it. His legs gave out. Marcus slid from his chair, his back scraping against the leather until he was on the floor, unable to stand, unable to think, unable to process what he was seeing. On the phone screen, now lying on the table above him, he could hear Rebecca's voice through the tinny speaker. "Yes, oh my God, yes. Look at you. Look at what you're doing." The girls reached her. All three stumbled into her arms at the same moment. Rebecca gathered them against her chest, pulling them close, sobbing openly. "I knew it," she cried. "I knew you could. I always knew." The Tokyo CEO's voice cut through. "Mr. Holloway, are you still there?" Marcus couldn't respond. He sat on the conference room floor, his entire body shaking, tears pouring down his face that he didn't try to hide. 18 months. 18 months of doctors saying, limited mobility, delayed development, manage expectations. 18 months of expensive specialists confirming what seemed impossible to change. And there his daughters were, walking, moving through space they couldn't see, following a voice that believed in them when everyone else, including their own father, had accepted their limitations as permanent. Marcus pressed both hands against his face and wept. Not quiet tears, not controlled grief. Something primal and overwhelming that had been building since the moment Elena died. Every failure, every betrayal, every night spent watching screens instead of holding his daughters, the shame of giving up, the fear of hoping, all of it came flooding out in waves that shook his entire body. Marcus didn't remember ending the call with Tokyo, didn't remember standing up or walking out of the conference room. He found himself in the hallway outside the living room, his hand on the doorknob, his heart pounding. He could hear them inside. The girls laughing, Rebecca's voice, warm and encouraging, the sound of small feet moving across hardwood. His daughters, alive, thriving, doing the impossible, and he'd missed it. Every step of their journey back to life, he'd been absent, watching through screens. Working in Tokyo while a stranger witnessed their miracles firsthand. Marcus pushed the door open. Rebecca looked up from where she knelt with the girls. Her face was still wet with tears, glowing with joy. Their eyes met. Marcus expected to feel gratitude, relief, wonder at what she'd accomplished. Instead, something cold and ugly twisted in his chest. Jealousy. This woman, this stranger making $15 an hour, had done what his millions couldn't. She'd reached his daughters. She'd believed in them. She'd brought them back to life, while their own father had given up. "Mr. Holloway." Rebecca stood quickly. "They walked. Did you see? They actually... What do you think you're doing?" His voice came out harder than he intended. Cold, accusing. Rebecca's smile faltered. "Sir, the girls are supposed to be in the sensory room following their schedule. Instead, I find them in here, unsupervised, attempting dangerous mobility exercises they're not ready for." "They are ready. They just proved." "You're putting them at risk." Marcus cut her off, his voice rising. "What if one of them fell? What if Hannah stumbled and hit her head? What if..." "Mr. Holloway, please. You were hired to follow protocol, to keep them safe, not to play therapist and fill their heads with false hope about abilities they'll never have." Rebecca's face went pale. "False hope? They just walked. You saw them. I saw 3 blind children stumbling across a room because you pushed them beyond their capabilities. The doctors have been clear about managing expectations. You're setting them up for failure and disappointment." "No." Rebecca's voice shook, but something fierce lived beneath the surface. "I'm giving them a chance." "A chance to what? To believe they're normal when they're not? To think they can do things their disability prevents?" The words hung in the air like poison. Rebecca stared at him, understanding dawning on her face. "This isn't about their safety, is it?" "Excuse me, you're not angry that I broke protocol?" Her voice was quiet now, but steady. "You're angry that I succeeded where you failed." Marcus felt heat flood his face. "How dare you? You gave up on them, Mr. Holloway. You decided they couldn't improve, and when someone proved you wrong, it made you feel like a failure. So now you're lashing out at me. You're fired." The words came out before Marcus could stop them. "Pack your things. Leave. Now." Sophia made a small sound, a whimper. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't beg. She didn't argue. She just knelt down and gathered the girls close one more time. "I have to go," she whispered to them. "But you remember what you did today. You walked. You're so strong, so brave. Don't ever forget that." Grace's hands reached for Rebecca's face, touching, trying to understand. Hannah started crying. Small, broken sounds. Rebecca stood, tears streaming down her cheeks, and walked past Marcus without another word. Her footsteps echoed down the hallway. The front door opened, closed, silence. The girls stood perfectly still for 3 heartbeats. Then, as if on cue, all 3 sank to the floor. They crawled toward each other, forming their small circle, holding hands the way they had for 18 months before Rebecca came. Before Hope arrived, Marcus stood in the doorway watching them retreat back into themselves, watching the light he'd just witnessed go out like someone had flipped a switch. "What have I done?" The words came out as a whisper. No one answered. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. That night, Marcus couldn't sleep. He sat at his desk with a termination notice half written on his screen. The cursor blinked, waiting. He minimized the document and pulled up the security footage from the afternoon, watched his daughters walk again, watched them reach for Rebecca, watched the joy on their faces turn to confusion when he fired her. His phone rang. His head of household staff, Patricia, who'd been with the family for 15 years. "Mr. Holloway, I need to speak with you about what happened today." "Not now, Patricia." "Yes, now." Her voice was firm. "Those girls were talking, actually communicating. Grace told me this morning that she wanted to wear her purple dress because Rebecca said purple feels like velvet. Do you understand what that means?" She formed a complete sentence. She expressed a preference. Marcus's throat tightened. "And you fired the one person who made that possible," Patricia continued. "Out of what? Pride? Fear? Because God forbid someone else succeed where you failed?" "Patricia, I've watched you grieve for 18 months, sir. I've watched you hide in your office, throw money at problems, and keep your daughters at arm's length because you're terrified of losing more. But you just destroyed the best thing that's happened to this family since Elena died." The line went dead. Marcus sat in the darkness, his head in his hands. Patricia was right. Rebecca was right. He'd given up on his daughters because accepting their limitations was easier than fighting for their potential. And when someone had the courage to fight, he punished her for it. The next morning, Marcus drove to the address Patricia had provided. A small apartment complex in San Jose, 3rd floor walk-up, cracked paint, a world away from Palo Alto estates. He climbed the stairs with his heart pounding, knocked. A young man opened the door, maybe 19, suspicious eyes immediately hardening when he saw Marcus's expensive suit. "Whatever you're selling, we're not interested. I'm looking for Rebecca Torres. I need to speak with her." "You're the guy who fired her." The young man's jaw clenched. "You made my aunt cry." "I know. I made a terrible mistake. Please, I need to apologize." "She doesn't want to see you." 5 minutes. Please." The door slammed in his face. Marcus stood there, staring at the peeling paint. In his world, money opened every door, status commanded respect, power got results. Here, it meant nothing. He returned the next day, and the next. On the 4th day, Rebecca finally answered. She looked tired. Her eyes were red. "What do you want, Mr. Holloway?" "To apologize. To beg you to come back. My daughters haven't spoken since you left. They've stopped responding. They've gone back into that silence. That's not my responsibility anymore." "I know. But Rebecca, please." His voice cracked. "You were right. About everything. I was jealous. I was ashamed. I saw you accomplish what I couldn't, and instead of being grateful, I destroyed it. You humiliated me in front of 3 children I love. You taught them that progress gets punished, that caring too much is dangerous." Marcus pulled an envelope from his jacket. "They made these for you." Rebecca took it with trembling hands. Inside were 3 drawings, crude crayon shapes. Sophia had drawn a music note. Grace, a heart. Hannah, 3 stick figures holding hands. At the bottom, in shaky letters, Patricia must have helped them write, "Please come back, we miss you." Rebecca's hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm not asking as your employer," Marcus whispered. "I'm asking as a father who's drowning, who doesn't know how to reach his own daughters, who needs someone to show him how to hope again." Rebecca looked at the drawings for a long moment. "If I come back and that's if everything changes, you don't get to hide in your office anymore. You don't get to watch them through cameras while I do the actual parenting. You show up, you're present, you learn. Anything, you restructure your life. Work from home, no more Tokyo trips, no more putting deals before daughters. Done. And you apologize to them. Actually apologize. Tell them you were wrong. Marcus nodded, his eyes burning. Rebecca looked at the drawings again. Give me 2 days. I need to think. 2 days felt like a lifetime. Marcus kept his word. He cancelled meetings, delegated deals. For the first time in 18 months, he stayed home. He tried to connect with the girls, made breakfast, sat with them, read to them even though he knew they couldn't see the pictures, but they remained distant, quiet, waiting for something or someone. On the 3rd morning, Rebecca walked through the door. The girls were in the living room when they heard her voice. Hey, sweet girls, I'm home. Time stopped. Sophia's head whipped toward the sound. Rebecca? Miss Rebecca? Grace scrambled up. Hannah started crying, not sad tears, but relief. All 3 girls moved toward her voice, their hands out, navigating the space they'd practiced. They crashed into her so hard Rebecca almost fell. You came back! Sophia's small hands touched Rebecca's face, confirming. You're real. You're here. I'm here. Rebecca knelt, gathering them close. I'm staying. I promise. Marcus watched from the doorway, tears streaming down his face. He didn't interrupt, didn't try to take credit, just watched his daughters come alive in someone else's arms. And for the first time, he wasn't jealous. He was grateful. After several minutes, Rebecca gently nudged the girls. Your daddy wants to talk to you. Marcus moved forward slowly and knelt down to their level. Sophia, Grace, Hannah, his voice shook. I need to tell you something. I made a very bad mistake. I got scared when Rebecca helped you walk because it showed me how much I'd given up on you. And instead of admitting I was wrong, I hurt her. I hurt all of you. Sophia's small hand reached out, found his face. I'm so sorry, Marcus whispered. I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry I stopped believing in you. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. Ever. Grace took his other hand. Hannah climbed into his lap. Marcus held his daughters and cried like he hadn't cried since Elena died. Rebecca put her hand on his shoulder. We'll get through this, she said softly. Together. 6 months later, everything had changed. Marcus worked from home 4 days a week. He knew his daughters' voices, their favorite textures, the songs they hummed. He'd learned from Rebecca how to guide them without controlling them, how to be present without fixing everything. The girls were thriving. They walked confidently now, using echolocation and tactile cues. They talked in full sentences, laughed, played, lived. Rebecca wasn't just the caregiver anymore. She was family. Aunt Becca. She ate dinners with them, celebrated milestones, prayed with them before bed. One evening, Marcus found them all in the garden. Rebecca and the girls were planting something, their hands in the dirt. What are we planting? Lavender, Hannah said. For Mummy. Aunt Becca says Mummy loved lavender. Marcus knelt beside them, his throat tight. She did. She loved it very much. Why? Sophia asked. She said it made everything peaceful. That the smell reminded her that beautiful things can grow even in hard times. Grace pressed seeds into the earth. Like us? Marcus looked at Rebecca. She smiled gently. Yeah, sweetheart, he whispered. Like us. A monarch butterfly landed on the seed packet. The girls went still. That's Mummy, Hannah said softly. Isn't it, Daddy? Yes, baby, that's her, watching over you, so proud. The butterfly circled once, then flew toward the sunset. Sophia took Marcus's hand. Are you staying, Daddy? Really staying? I'm staying, baby, I promise. Forever? Forever. Rebecca wiped her eyes. Marcus looked at her over the girls' heads and mouthed, Thank you. She shook her head. Thank God. Marcus understood. This wasn't about him or Rebecca or even the girls. It was about grace, the kind that shows up when you're broken, the kind that refuses to accept impossible, the kind that doesn't give up. The sun disappeared behind the horizon, casting golden light across the garden. The lavender will grow, right, Daddy? Grace asked. Marcus kissed her forehead. Yes, baby, it'll grow. And when it does, it'll make everything beautiful. Just like your mom said. Just like us, Hannah repeated. Just like us, Marcus whispered. Surrounded by his daughters, beside the woman who'd saved them all, Marcus finally understood what Elena had been trying to teach him. True wealth isn't what you build, it's who you become, and the most valuable thing in this life isn't success or money or control, it's love that stays. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Matthew 16:26. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.